Making this video has been a really long and actually difficult process, if I can be completely honest. Lots of stuff has happened in life that has really just made me lose a majority of confidence and interest in making videos for a good while. And when it comes to a game as important to me as Mega Man X5 is, I don't want to force it, you know? X5 was my introduction to any of the Mega Man games as a kid. When it comes to any of the games I ever owned on PS1, X5 was my most played and beloved. So after all this time, I believe that I'm finally ready to do this whole review thing again, and what better way to get back into it than by tossing all of my bias for this game out the window and seeing if it's truly the beginning of the end for the Mega Man X series. Being that X5 was supposed to be the last of the X series and lead straight into the Mega Man Zero series on the Game Boy Advance, Keiji Inafune and company went all out with the story here and really gave it a nice sense of finality that of course didn't last, due to Satan in the form of a video game being summoned from the 9th circle of hell less than a year later, completely against the wishes of the man in charge. Just watch one of the most epic fucking nostalgia fuel intros to ever be in a Mega Man video game, or honestly any video game in general. Like this tells you right here, this is fucking it. Our story begins a few months after the end of X4, and due to the damage caused during the Repliforce War, repairs are steadily being made to space colonies and the Earth alike. However, these times of peace are cut short when a mysterious figure manages to take control of the space colony Eurasia, and spreads a virus over the colony while also sabotaging Eurasia to collide with the Earth below in the next 16 hours. Why 16 hours? I have no idea. I guess the game is trying to give you a weird sense of urgency, but really you have plenty of time to finish the game and the timer is just a bit of a nuisance, if at all. Afterwards, our mysterious bad guy is seen talking to what is obviously Sigma, like, come on. But this time around, Sigma's involvement with the plot isn't really meant to be a secret or a plot twist, and he makes himself known very shortly after and lures the Maverick Hunters X and Zero into a confrontation with him and allows himself to be easily defeated after he injures either X or Zero, depending who you decide to play the intro stage as. Yeah, this time you can choose to play as either Maverick Hunter at any point before beginning a stage, unless you draw the short stick that is going to be discussed in a minute. Turns out that our favorite recurring villain still has quite the brain inside of his bald ass head that hasn't been slapped into mush over the last 4 games, as this entire occurrence was a part of an honestly elaborate and the most effective plan thus far in the series. Since Sigma is essentially a viral program living within cyberspace, we can assume that he is able to easily transfer his consciousness between bodies at will. This particular body that Sigma is inhabiting during the intro just so happens to be rigged to spread the Maverick virus across the entire planet at an even faster rate. With the entire world now in a mass state of panic due to this combination of events, X, Zero, and a new cast of supporting characters begin working toward once again saving the world from Sigma and his never-ending bullshit. The first course of action is to rebuild the Enigma, a sort of mega laser shooty thingy, and just blow the Eurasia colony to bits to avoid catastrophe. To do this, X and Zero basically gotta go beat the shit out of some Mavericks and steal the Enigma parts from their corpses. X5 continues where X4 left off when it comes to X and Zero having different interactions with bosses, and it's still pretty entertaining when you ignore this annoying ass dialogue sound. Well, entertaining for Zero at least. Simply based on the game's dialogue alone, you can tell that this is yet another Zero-centric game. Bosses basically reminisce with Zero about previous times that they had met and even fought, and this makes X5's cast of Mavericks feel like they actually matter in the Mega Man universe, despite how not very memorable they are as really badass looking characters. For example, Tidal Wells, a museum curator, Burn Diner Rex, and Spiral Pegasus are bitter survivors of the Repliforce War. Volt Kraken is a rogue Maverick Hunter who left after growing disillusioned whenever X zapped his buddy Launch Octopus back in X1. And Dark Necrobat is a faulty Maverick created by Sigma that just lives in seclusion and is, no pun intended, batshit crazy, and even recognizes Zero as technically a fellow Maverick. Interactions with X, on the other hand, save for the one with Volt Kraken regarding Launch Octopus, are all typical things that X would say. He doesn't want to fight even though he has to. He wonders why he has to keep fighting, you know, same shit we've seen for 5 main games now. Not saying that this is necessarily bad, but X seriously needs some character development since the game is titled Mega Man X5. It's, you know, it's named after him. And I know that for most people I was referring to some of the Maverick bosses by their updated names, but the whole Guns N' Roses inspired name story is overplayed now and I don't want to be any more redundant than I can already be. Once X and Zero managed to acquire all the Enigma pieces, our new tech-savvy friend Douglas puts it all together, and now we get to watch the fireworks. Shit, I forgot to mention that about halfway through the hunt for the Enigma parts, we were finally introduced to Sigma's mercenary and secondary antagonist flavor of the day, Dynamo. Basically, he's only here to slow down the Maverick Hunters even further and provide enough distractions to allow the Eurasia colony to crash as planned. So yeah, his official job description is totally, dead seriously, unironically just pain in the ass. While he is a shitty, unimportant character that I have always imagined sounds like a douchebag surfer stereotype, or hell, even Yamcha from Dragon Ball.
Everybody's always too hot when they fight, but not me. I'm the coolest and wisest of all. If you can't understand, I'll just have to show you.
His fights are damn fun and his theme song kicks serious ass. But yeah, back to the fireworks stuff. In most cases, not really, and this here is when the game itself seriously begins to shit the entire king-size bed. When shooting Eurasia with Enigma, you will more than likely only partially destroy it, meaning that you now have an excuse to go and defeat the 4 remaining Mavericks for some space shuttle parts that will be used to just crash into the damn thing. But maybe, just maybe, you'll be lucky enough to have the Enigma actually do its job. The major plot points of the game and 3 entire endings are all influenced by RNG, and how that ties into the game itself is something that we will most certainly be getting into. As the space shuttle parts are being gathered, Dynamo will make one more appearance, get his shit wrecked, and then seriously just like,
yo, like, I don't want to die, so I'ma just fuck off. See ya, bro.
Also, we are shown a discussion between Cygnus, the new leader of the Maverick Hunters, and Lifesaver, who is, I guess, a medic figure. They go on about how the Sigma virus, as shown in the game as a floating purple Sigma head, is lethal to everyone except Zero. Whenever Zero comes into contact with the virus, he becomes stronger. This translates well within the gameplay too. If you allow Zero to become fully infected by the virus, any health that he may have lost will come back and there will be even a temporary invincibility period and he'll have upgraded strength for a minute. Cygnus wants to keep this information a secret, despite Zero himself wondering out loud why he feels even more powerful, becoming increasingly worried about his well-being. Whenever the space shuttle is complete, Zero, being the only competent pilot left, volunteers to direct the shuttle on a crash course with Eurasia and eject at the last second to ensure the colony's destruction. Before we get to the possible results of said crash, I'm going to go ahead and tell you now, if you've been playing as Zero up to this point, there's a pretty good chance you're about to lose the ability to even play as him, and collectibles aren't shared between X and Zero. Again, I'll get more in depth with that part in a minute. One of 2 things can happen when Zero crashes the shuttle into Eurasia. The colony can be completely obliterated and Zero will make it back home with no issues. Or the crash can be a complete failure and result in a massive amount of damage done to the planet, ending tons of lives and even awakening Zero, turning him into a Maverick once more. If the former option happens, you can get both X and Zero's true endings from their own perspectives. If the latter occurs, you're locked into one single ending that forces you to play as X and it just blows ass, to be honest. And there's absolutely nothing that you can do to determine what ending you get, unless you want to constantly reload your save until you get whatever outcome you prefer at the time. Regardless of the result, whatever is or isn't left of Eurasia crashes into the Earth and the virus that was set loose on the colony merges with the Sigma virus on Earth, creating a new virus in the process that our annoying ass support character that hasn't really been worth mentioning yet, Alia, dubs the Zero virus due to it having similar readings to Zero himself, whatever the fuck that means, and then in the game it just looks like a floating purple Zero. The new virus dwells within the crater left by the Eurasia crashing into Earth and has created this sort of mysterious cyberspace fortress. As X and Zero were in the worst case scenario just X make their way through the pretty well done cyberspace looking fan service central, the two will always cross paths in the 3rd stage of the place. Whether Zero went Maverick or not, the battle that has been building since Mega Man X2 between Dr. Light and Dr. Wily's ultimate creations will finally happen here, and it is fucking fantastic. No matter what result you got with Eurasia, this fight and this theme are perhaps the best that the entire series has to offer, whether you're playing as X or Zero, and also manages to provide a rare instance of challenge within the game. With the true ending in mind, X and Zero run into one another. If you're playing as Zero here, X will be accompanied by Lifesaver, who wants to jump to conclusions and accuse Zero of being Maverick, while X just tries to play it cool and convince Zero to go back to base and get some rest. Zero, of course, refuses, and Zero himself begins to suspect X of being a Maverick, resulting in the two fighting. And of course, it's pretty much the other way around if you're playing as X. Yeah, I know that fighting over a huge misunderstanding just works, but I feel that the best possible way to do this fight is when Zero is a Maverick. It just fits better within the story and feels like it was the more intended version of events, but of course it's tied to a shitty ending, so oh well. Once the battle is over, Sigma comes out of nowhere to take advantage and kill the incapacitated X and Zero. Now, if Zero had turned Maverick, he will be going back to normal for just long enough to predictably sacrifice himself to save X, leaving X to go on and battle Sigma alone. If not though, despite who the player was in control of, Zero will always get up at the last second and blast Sigma's ass, causing him to retreat and give both hunters the opportunity to go after him. After the typical boss rush mumbo jumbo and the most hyped shit that little me had ever heard at the time, it's time for what was meant to be the ultimate final battle with Sigma. Before the fight, Sigma heavily alludes to either X or Zero that he was only brought back with his current plans thanks to Dr. Wily in some form or another. It turns out that Wily told Sigma how to cause Zero to become his true Maverick self once again, this being the only reason for all the virus and colony crashing nonsense. In a really disappointing callback to the Sigma fight in X1, our bald friend's head is most definitely raw and bleeding for all the slapping he's taken now. If X had completed the journey by himself, his broken and mangled body is repaired by the, I guess, cyber ghost of Dr. Light. Dr. Light also wipes all of X's memories of Zero ever existing in order to ease the mental trauma of fighting and losing his best friend. X returns to his Maverick hunting duties and even expresses his dreams of building a place where humans and Reploids can live in peace called Elysium. This being some sort of reference to the Mega Man Legends games that I guess was completely retconned in the future. The true ending is seen from the perspectives of both X and Zero. Once Sigma's defeated, he attempts to take both of them with him to the grave via self-destruction. Zero, being the badass he is, takes the entire force of the explosion and is left in pieces. X pleads with Zero not to die as the surviving head of Sigma sends a blast through both X and Zero, while Zero also sends a blast at Sigma, finally killing him. Zero blames X's optimism at the idea of Zero surviving this explosion as what led to his apparent death as well. As he dies, Zero reflects on his life, reliving key moments in his life while thinking that all of this was just his memory unit losing power. His final memory is of when he was being built by Dr. Wily with purpose of causing destruction. Zero also uses these moments as an opportunity to apologize to Iris for the events of X4. Zero states that the world will be at peace if he passes away and finally tells X goodbye before dying. From X's perspective of the ending, the same stuff with the Dr. Light hologram happens minus the memory wipe. Fast forward to 3 years later and X is still at it as a hunter, except he's more confident and sharp, reflecting a lot of the qualities held by Zero. X also wields the Z-Saber in memory of his best friend, and so the story was supposed to end here as a bridge to the Zero series, with X having the character development that he always needed. With no prior context and this being my first ever Mega Man game, little me still managed to cry like a little bitch here. Sad music, sad stuff happened, the cool character I was playing as dying, there were lots of factors here. Now, as an adult who has played through the entire series, this is still some somewhat sad stuff, and is as great of a piece of storytelling that it can be to truly cap off the X series for good and provide a smooth transition into the upcoming Zero series. As the credits roll and the ever-appropriate feeling music plays, the feeling that this is really the end begins to kinda set in your mind. But instead, Capcom decided that X6 should exist, and now the characters and stories of X5 onward are just an absolute clusterfuck that has entirely too many issues. Honestly, you can just seriously consider X5 to truly be the ending, and the other games to just be an alternate timeline without missing out on anything, except for the somewhat redeeming X8. Story-wise, X5 is my personal favorite in the series. It can probably be attributed to this being my first Mega Man game, or simply because it's the one I've played through more times than the rest. Of course, I can see the legitimate issues that people have with it. I'm kinda pissed that the method of storytelling is lazier than an X4. There aren't any talking heads during normal dialogue, and the, I guess you could call them cutscenes, are just static images with text that seriously makes you miss the horribly voice-acted animated cutscenes from the game before. And if the ending you got was determined by how much you actually completed the Enigma or Shuttle, or however close to the deadline you completed them at, rather than RNG decided bullshit, this really would have been the best Mega Man story simply because the players themselves had the power to influence the ending. But instead, we got what we got, and what we got was a randomly generated disappointment. As you can expect, X5 plays virtually identical to X4, but with a few new tricks added in. Now you can duck under stuff and grab onto these weird floating rope things. The game isn't as easy as X4 was at a whole, but it's not X3 levels of difficult. Bosses are super predictable and only act as end-level obstacles rather than fun or exciting fights. Tidal Well's ice block stuff is pretty cool though if he gets the chance to do it, that is. The Shadow Devil boss is the only actual difficult fight in the game and is even harder than the original Yellow Devil from Mega Man 1 since its pattern isn't the same the entire time. The boss rush could be considered challenging, I guess, only because it's annoying how much health the enemies have. But yeah, rather than having 2 separate campaigns to go through and collect all the heart tanks, this time you have to either share or just load up all the life upgrades onto one hunter. And if you decide to give them all to Zero, good luck. Thankfully your sub-tanks, weapon tanks, and the returning while still useless EX tank are shared. X and Zero both feel exactly how they previously did, except if you start the game as Zero, he can use the Z-Buster and, it's pretty damn ass. Honestly, don't even bother starting the game as Zero unless you like gambling. For one, of course, you can just completely lose access to him after the shuttle launch, and 2, starting the game as X grants you access to the 4th armor from the previous game, and that shit is more than enough of a reason to say no to Zero at first, especially if Zero becomes unavailable. I'm just gonna get all the way into it, but if you play as Zero for the entire game and then lose him, you're left with plain ass Naked X. You don't want to be left with plain Naked X. Plain Naked X has weak defense and can't even air dash like Zero can. Start the game as X and have the OP 4th armor that includes hover boots, larger special weapons capacity, higher defense, but sadly no Nova Strike in your back pocket, and then play as whoever you want just in case. The special boss weapons as X were, in my opinion, only useful at all as a way to freeze time and stop the Mega Man 2 Quickman lasers in a single level, help you get a grand total of 2 light capsules, or of course as enemy weaknesses. And even then, having to sit through the long ass animations that occur when an enemy is hit by their weakness gets on my damn nerves, so sometimes I wouldn't even use it at all. Yeah, I won't say much else about X's special attacks. As Zero's special moves are handled differently than X's once again. The animations for certain things aren't even changed from X4, which is honestly completely fine to me. The powers that a couple of these same attacks have are now different when it comes to elemental abilities and stuff, and the air dash now has a damaging effect to it. The unlockable double jump and flip slash return, and some more new stuff is basically Zero's version of Soul Body from X4 and the same time freezing technique that X gets. But for real, fighting bosses as Zero just amounts to either spamming the flip attack and exploiting the game with the returning Z-Saber dash cancel. Of course the controls are still familiar and just as fluid as X4, but the game itself feels a bit more tailored for Zero if you don't have X's 4th armor unlocked from the beginning. As I mentioned before, base armor X can't air dash while Zero can, and while this doesn't really make the game impossible by any means, you'll be having a hard time. And no, things won't get any easier once you find X's leg piece. Because whenever you find one of X's armor pieces in this game, for some odd reason, the capsule holograms of Dr. Light that are now suddenly aware of what's going on in the world tell you that due to Sigma's virus being a thing, you can only download the data for the armor set and only wear the armor set itself in its completed form. Gone are the days of being able to wear and benefit from the abilities of each individual armor piece. Oh boy, wait until I tell you that there is actually an armor capsule in all 8 stages, meaning that there are 2 armor sets that you have to complete. I just did, but still. And to add on to that, you need to get 1 armor set to even be able to get to the capsules for the other set. And neither of them are really worth getting unless you want to collect every single heart tank. And honestly, even this shit is kinda redundant in the game, unless you just want a mega huge health bar, since after you complete each stage, you get the option to get an additional heart tank or more weapon storage as a reward along with the stage's weapon. That is, if your hunter rank is high enough, which is based on your performance in the game. Be it stage completion time, enemies taken out, and damage done if my assumptions are correct. If your hunter rank is high enough, clearing a stage will also cause the next Maverick that you fight to have a higher level, which only means that they have more health. Only if the boss you're fighting is at a level 4 can you acquire more health or weapon energy. Whenever you get to a boss that is at least level 8, you can choose from the same 2 options, but there's literally a plus added to it now. Now you can get actual parts that can be equipped to either X or Zero, or sometimes specifically for X's different armors, all with varying amounts of equipment slots. Parts all have different functions and can be super beneficial and will make the game stupid easy. For example, there are parts to make you jump higher, run faster, have a stronger Z-Saber, have every buster shot from X be at maximum charge, albeit with a bit of a delay between shots, and several others. How to specifically acquire each different part is actually a lot to explain, and this isn't even an X5 part system grinding guide, so I'm just going to get back on topic now. But back to X's different armors and why they aren't particularly worth getting. The first armor that you'll probably get is the Falcon Armor. This shit looks badass and has the usual X super armor qualities like half damage, a Giga Crush, and more weapon energy, along with what is called the spear charge shot, which is able to penetrate enemy shields, and then you have the ability to straight up fly around for a few seconds. While flying, X does damage to all enemies that he contacts and is able to access otherwise inaccessible stuff like a couple of the capsules for the other armor set. And if you want, you can just zoom through levels without many problems and just make the game a breeze. The second armor set for X is the Gaia armor. Now, I won't lie, this one is pretty unique. It's really tanky and slow, like really slow. The cool part is that while wearing this armor, X can now blow shit up with the cool Giga attack, walk on top of spikes, cling to walls without sliding down, and he can even push and blast through these very peculiar blocks. The downside to this is that the only time the armor is ever truly necessary is when these blocks are present, and the only thing that is ever behind them is a heart tank, and they only appear twice in the game. So the reason why these two new armors aren't worth getting is because of this bad bastard right here. This is the same ultimate armor from X4 and it is the best. This is just the regular 4th armor but cooler and on steroids with an unlimited supply of Nova Strikes. There are two ways you can acquire this and both are actually really easy. The easiest of the two is to simply input a cheat code at the character select screen before you even start the game. Instead of starting with the 4th armor, X will start with the ultimate armor. The other way to get this is by entering the 3rd fortress stage as basic blue X. With some precise jumping and knowing which pit wall to slide into, there will be a capsule waiting for you there that just gives you the armor. It doesn't equip the shit, so if you'd rather fight Zero as not Naked X, just lose all your lives and equip it at the stage select screen. The black armor for Zero makes a return from X4, and it's also more than just a cosmetic and provides Zero with a much needed 50% damage reduction since the dude is made of fucking glass, a stronger saber, and even comes with a few parts to equip whether you have found them or not. Zero can find the capsule for the black armor in the same location that X finds the ultimate armor and even has an interesting dialogue exchange with the Dr. Light hologram. Now for the levels that all of these capsules and collectibles are located in, they're pretty solid, albeit half of them are super gimmicky. Dead serious, the majority of these levels just have some often stupid gimmicky shit in place of a normal first half. Rather than having varying stages full of interesting platforming segments and enemies that require even a moderate amount of skill to be completed, we have shit like this. And it's a damn shame that these specific levels are the way that they are because they actually contain a few of my favorite tracks in the entire game's OST. All of the tracks are good, but still. Who wants to just ride some platform through a short annoying segment of just slow motion and bats spawning in or just run underwater at a snail's pace while fighting some boring ass whale ship for the entire level? This speed bike segment and Volt Kraken stage isn't all that bad when you get the hang of it, contrary to popular opinion. It's really short and you just gotta do some button mashing, but it's very doable. Plus you have unlimited continues, so it's really just a matter of how many tries out of infinity it takes you. The only truly annoying part is having to make sure that you get all these energy ball things since that's the only way you can blow through the door to that level's armor capsule. The first half of Burn Dino Rex's stage is the only time you'll ever actually need to duck this much, and I feel like this level only exists for that purpose. There's a timed wave of lava that blows by every 10 or however many seconds, and to avoid them you have to just fit into these spots with the green dotted lines and you're good. It's kind of boring and also frustrating when you get greedy for even half of a second and try to get a little further than you probably should. With some practice this can be done quickly and isn't even super long to begin with. And the second half of the level is much better anyway, so it's worth the trouble. When I think about it, the second half of this level and a few other levels in the game just feel like inferior versions of X4's levels. A lava area where you pilot a ride armor, a little bike segment that's not as good as an X4, this pre-rendered spiraling staircase that doesn't even fit with the sprites at all, and this whole shit with trains but done a bit differently. Even the intro stage is sort of trying to just be like before by giving X and Zero their own individual, actually really good theme music that still sadly falls short of feeling as cool as before though. fuck. When I think about it, the only levels that have some originality to them either just play it safe and are lackluster as fuck, or have these little gimmicks and are still lackluster as fuck. This entire level is basically just, oh, hey, you got this new technique in the game where you can slide on ropes and shit? Yeah, do nothing but that here. Destroying bombs as you run through a pretty bare bones air-based level with little challenge, hopping between exploding trains in a not so exciting way, and breaking into a literal castle that's actually fun to complete are the coolest things about the 8 main Maverick levels. And I guess to sort of spice things up, these identical yellow Reploids are placed throughout levels, sometimes in dumbass spots, to give you an incentive to just go after them since they restore some of your health and give you an ever so useless extra life. Oh yeah, let's not forget about the massive amount of backtracking that will be done in this game if you intend on collecting everything. The best example of this is in the Tidal Whale stage. So you want to get this capsule, right? Well, you can't yet, so you move on and just finish the stage. If you're already aware of how to get it, or you just come back after you have the special weapons and start trying whenever you can, you'll find out that all you needed was the power that you get from that very stage. There's no case of luckily having what you need to get the capsule. You have to go through all the slow bullshit water stuff. The game literally forces you to backtrack on more occasions than just this, and it's annoying as fuck. And to add the little, I guess, nitpicky cherry on top, multiple times per stage during almost every single stage, you get stopped by the previously mentioned annoying ass support character Alia. Jesus shit, all of this is so unnecessary. The text box sound is already bad enough, but being stopped multiple times out of nowhere and having the game completely ruin any type of pacing or flow that you have is fucking awful. At this point, you're probably thinking that I'm telling you the game is a piece of shit, but it's really not. Yeah, it's for the most part inferior to X4 and shamelessly reuses a ton of assets and ideas, and while I said it does play it safe with some really basic level design, it can still be fun every now and again since it retains the same fun and crisp gameplay as its predecessor. This game is an absolute mess, most definitely, but as a Mega Man game I'd say it shines with the best story in the X timeline, the best visuals and animations to date in the series, save for whatever is going on with pre-rendered Sigma right here. I won't lie, I almost feel bad for tearing one of my favorite childhood games of all time apart like this. While I don't come back to X5 as often as X4 anymore, the time I spend with this game, which is around 4 hours in total for a pretty thorough playthrough as each character, is always a great time and full-on nostalgia trip for me. X5 isn't anywhere near the game that it could have been, but it's still well worth playing despite its many flaws. In my opinion, it's a perfect send-off for the X series. And one of the main reasons I'm saying this is because X6 through 8 exist. If you thought this was a step down from the peak of Mount Mega Man that is known as X4, get ready for quite a tumble. When it's all said and done, I hope that something of value could be delivered to you with this video. I feel like it was more of a rant than a review or retrospective or whatever. This specific game is just one of those that ended up being really fun to talk about critically. My feelings about this game have not changed in the slightest, but I really enjoyed putting all this together in a mostly non-biased way for people who are possibly having some trouble deciding to play it or not, or aren't sure about whether or not they should come back to it after prior disappointment, or for those who just want to watch a Mega Man X video. Whatever your decision may be, or simply whatever amount of entertainment you got from this, thank you so much for watching this long ass video. Take good care, and I will hopefully see you soon.